and then they go back to their planet.
You're a puppet on a string.
A puppet on a string from a free will puppet.
You're a free will puppet on a string.
What I would say in that case is that I would hope that the knowledge that I have that puppet on the string circumstance allows me to circumvent it. I can find a way. If it's fate, right? You've seen so many Greek mythology stories where you try to avoid the fate of whatever the gods have destined for you.
And the act of avoiding it
is what makes it happen.
Like Oedipus, for example.
Oedipus
right.
would be the most
famous
egregious
of those.
example.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
So the bottom line is, yes, I would still be satisfied with trying to do something different, because even the illusion of trying to do something different is in itself a form of free will. Physics-wise, though,
It's not.
that's the challenge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Neil, if you had to right now decide that free will does exist or doesn't exist, what would you prefer?
My thinking over the recent years, because I didn't used to think about this at all, my thinking over recent years is leaning towards the absence of free will for practically everything we think and do in our lives. And I base that on the fact that over time, things that we have done as people in our species, at one time was, you are totally to blame for that, or just something you did, or something we've learned, no, this person is more susceptible than you are to addiction.
Right.
There's a biochemistry there. This person cannot just be made the life of the party because they're on the autism spectrum. They don't control that in the way you might think they should, just because you're the life of the party. As you add up all of these things, let's go back to epilepsy, where before that was even a word, you were occupied by the devil. Did you do something bad? Or, well, you knew it was not, everyone knew you were not in control of it, but today, no one is saying, did you have the free will to not have an epileptic seizure? Of course not. Do you have the free will to not be depressed? The person who's ready to jump off the bridge, in that instant, do they have the free will to not jump off the bridge? I don't think so. And the more I add up and explore the human condition, I'm forced to conclude that the direction we are headed is that we are all products of an absence of free will. And as a result, society needs more compassion for people who do not otherwise fit in.
See, I have the exact opposite position in my own mind. I feel that it is because of the absence of free will that you see in most behavior, that it is that 1% of free will activity that moves us in the right direction, bends us toward compassion, takes the arc of history toward justice.
But but going back to what Neil just said, there are people who actually suffer from personality disorders, that suffer from brain disorders, where they can't do what you just said. They can't express compassion.
Chuck,
they can't move
there
towards
was a day when no one even thought to analyze it that way, as a brain disorder.
Yeah, you were just an a-hole.
Yeah, exactly.
That was it.
Now, if they can't, you can. You can show that person compassion or understanding. And therefore, free will as an entity exists.
Charles, you're drawing a line
even
that I have seen be in constant motion over the decades and over the centuries. That line that you're saying, they don't have free will, but I do. I don't know that I can.
See, I have free will over some things and not over others. Someone can see me and say, that person needs help in this way and has the free will to help me. I see somebody else who needs this help and free will. Together, it is a network. It's not that any individual.
So you have to draw the
other.
line for every individual and even perhaps for society.
Okay.
Does the criminal who's born in poverty have free will to not be a criminal if most of the people in prison came in below the poverty line? So there's some sociological force operating there.
So
where we are less susceptible to that force.
I think that's a great question, analogy. Let's say this. Say those folks who have been branded criminals by our society are incarcerated.
Yes.
We can then, who were fortunate enough not to face those same circumstances, who are not incarcerated, can look at these incarcerated people and instead of saying we must keep them away from society, welcome them back.
So that's called restorative justice.
Yeah,
that's
and
what
that's
you're
a
talking
free
about.
will example of the exercise of free will
of society.
toward individuals who may not have had the options, had the life experience to recover from a bombed joke.
I saw an old movie
Yeah.
where there's a guy who was a junkie.
Yeah.
Right? And he needed help.
Mhm.
But they said, no, the cops came and arrested him because he was a junkie.
Right.
Today, you wouldn't do that.
Right.
You would say the person needs help.
They need, right.
Right.
Therapy.
Even if that person
Treatment.
had robbed somebody, that person needs treatment. And the people who cannot shake whatever it is that afflicts them tells me that free will cannot be as free as we think it is. Do you remember the shooter in the University of Texas at Austin?
I remember that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a movie they made out of it called The Tower.
Yeah.
Where he left a note saying, I just want to kill people. Something must be wrong with my brain. Please, when I die, find out.
Look into this.
They looked, and there was a tumor putting pressure on a part of them. In fact, that's how we learn anything about how the brain works when
And
you have
this
situations like this.
Person had the free will
he
to
didn't
write
have the free
a
will.
note. He had the free will to write the note.
But
so he did not have the will to resist shooting. But that's the line that you were talking about is a partial one.
Why isn't that line always in motion as we learn more and more about how the mind
It
works?
is. It is.
Okay, so then maybe it's a line of convenience today, but tomorrow we're going to find out, oh my gosh, that person has no real free control over their behavior, over their personality, over their tendencies, over their treatment of others.
It's not a line of convenience. It is, in your words, a perimeter of ignorance. When Newton said we couldn't explain certain things, right? God must have done it.
Of course.
That's a God of the gaps.
Of course.
That delineates what we don't know. The line you describe, I hope, is in fact that perimeter of ignorance which we slowly are moving toward and moving so that we do understand what the true nature of free will is.
So this is where people will push back. Most people are concerned not about the actions, but the consequences. So what they're thinking about is the punitive response to someone who does something wrong. And is a punitive response a deterrent for somebody doing something wrong or doing something wrong in the future?
Especially if they don't have the free will.
Right.
So there's the other side of this entire analysis is how does society interact with people who are being brought into the circle day by day. We're learning what we have control over and what we don't, biophysiologically, intellectually, emotionally.
Yes.
Why do people need anxiety meds? Or do they have the freedom to not
Because they have
be
children.
anxious?
That is why. That is
still on
why
meds?
I'm
You on
telling you,
extra dose?
I'm taking them every day, and I got 3 reasons that I take them every day.
Some kids need them because they have parents.
No!
I'm just saying.
Very nice, very nice.
Okay, so Charles, if we're going to exit this conversation,
Yeah.
if we find a point of agreement, it's that this perimeter of ignorance, we recognize inside the perimeter there are forces operating against free will,
Yes.
our physiology, our neurochemistry,
Yes.
and physics,
Yes.
that surely that perimeter may grow,
Yes.
but it's possible that there's a limit to how far it will grow,
Yes.
beyond which we have to admit the existence of free will.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you that.
There
Very nice.
we are.
That's a great
All
job.
It doesn't have to be absolute in one
Right.
direction or
Correct.
another.
It's a bit more fluid. Okay.
I'm okay
All right.
with that. There is uncertainty in the universe. I embrace it.
I'll tell you this much. I've been married for 20 plus years. I do not have free will.
On that note, Chuck and Charles, thanks for helping us with this explainer.
Awesome.
On the perspectives, let's call it, but emergent perspectives on free will. Neil deGrasse Tyson for Star Talk, yet another explainer in the universe. Keep looking up.